Most people who feel financially stuck have already figured out one half of the problem. They can see that the guy in the leased luxury vehicle probably has less actual wealth than the quiet woman packing her lunch. They sense that looking rich and being rich are not the same game. But knowing that in theory and actually being able to read the real signals in real time are completely different skills. There are 7 behavioral patterns that genuinely wealthy people share almost universally, and almost none of them are what you would expect. And once you see them, you will not be able to unsee them in any parking lot, any coffee shop, or any conversation for the rest of your life. One idea explains all 7 before we start. Income is the performance. Wealth is what survives after the performance ends. Income is loud and visible and easy to track. Wealth is structural and quiet and almost entirely invisible from the outside. And the genuinely rich have learned something most people spend their whole working lives missing: that every dollar spent performing success is a dollar that cannot compound into actually being successful. Sign 1. The car tells you nothing because it was chosen that way. The fastest way to misread someone's financial position is to look at what they drive, because the relationship between cars and actual wealth runs almost exactly opposite to what you have been trained to expect. A new car in America now costs over $50,000 on average, and more than 1 in 5 buyers are committing to payments above $1,000 a month. Those are not the genuinely wealthy. Those are people renting the appearance of arrival and paying interest for the privilege of the place. The genuinely wealthy have done the math. A car loses roughly 20% of its value the moment it leaves the lot and keeps bleeding for years. So they let someone else absorb that first-year evaporation and buy lightly used. Then they drive it until it becomes almost embarrassing. And then they drive it a little longer. The small dent that nobody fixed, the sun-faded paint, the lunch packed from home, these are not evidence of struggle. They are the visible receipts of decisions that funded something worth far more than the car in the next lane. Sign 2. Their money is invisible because it is always moving. The genuinely wealthy do not have a savings account you can point at and say that is their wealth. They have a stack of accounts doing tax-efficient work in the background that most people leave half empty for an entire career. A maxed 401k, a Roth IRA, a health savings account funded to the legal limit, a taxable brokerage account that receives automatic contributions before they ever see the paycheck. None of it visible, none of it impressive, none of it designed to be noticed. The mechanism that makes it invisible is the same mechanism that makes it powerful. It runs on autopilot. The money moves before they feel it, so they never miss it and never get the opportunity to redirect it towards something that photographs better. This single design choice, paying yourself before you spend anything, is the largest share of the distance between the people who quietly become wealthy and the people who always mean to start next year. Sign 3. They owe almost nobody anything. The average American adult carries over $63,000 in total debt right now. Credit card balances at interest rates approaching 25%. Auto loans stretch to 7 years on vehicles worth 40% less by the time they are paid off. Money already promised to lenders before a single morning of any month has started. The heavily indebted person wakes up and their money is already gone. The genuinely wealthy live on the other side of that equation. They carry the credit card balance to 0 before a cent of interest can attach. They paid cash or a small, short loan for the unremarkable car years ago. Any debt charging more than their investments can reliably earn gets eliminated immediately. And what you get when no one owns a piece of your income is something that no raise can replicate. Every dollar that comes in is entirely yours to direct. And that freedom has a physical feeling that the heavily financed cannot access regardless of how large their income looks on paper. Sign 4. They go silent whenever money comes up. Pay attention at any gathering to who narrates their own finances. Someone always mentions what the renovation cost, what the bonus came in at, what the trip ran. The genuinely wealthy are almost never that person. Not because they are modest, but because for them, money stopped being exciting a long time ago. It became plumbing, the quiet system running underneath everything that lets the rest of life happen. and nobody throws a party every time the plumbing works. The silence is also strategic. Talking about money invites comparison, requests, resentment, and judgment. People sitting on real assets have no interest in painting a target on themselves. And there is something else operating underneath the silence. The genuinely wealthy are not tracking their status against other people. They chose a different scoreboard years ago, and they do not need an audience to know the score. Sign 5. They live in a house that is smaller than they qualify for. The neighborhood people associate with wealth is often full of stretched budgets hiding behind impressive front doors. The genuinely wealthy tend to do the opposite. They buy the modest house on the ordinary street and let the difference between what the bank told them they could afford and what they actually spent compound somewhere else for the next 30 years. Every extra bedroom is more property tax, more insurance, more footage to heat and cool, and more rooms that nobody walks into. And a bigger house feels like a reward until it quietly becomes the anchor that keeps you from ever pulling ahead. The genuinely wealthy understand that a house is partly a place to live and partly a money decision, and they refuse to let the second part ruin the first. They would rather have a paid-off modest house and a fat investment account than an impressive address and a payment that owns them until they are 70. And if the distinction between the performance of arrival and actually arriving just reframed something for you, the like button is right there. It means the next video gets made and I get to keep being specific about this on your behalf. Sign 6. Unexpected financial shocks produce a specific kind of calm. Watch how someone responds when the unexpected bill lands. The transmission, the water heater, the sudden layoff. For most households, any one of those alone triggers a genuine emergency because the national personal savings rate sits near 4% of income, which is nowhere close to enough to absorb a real shock. The response is panic, because when there is no floor, panic is the rational response. The genuinely wealthy meet that same bad news with a quietness that is almost unsettling from the outside. And that quietness does not come from wealth itself. It comes from something specific their wealth built them, which is a floor, an emergency fund covering 6 to 12 months of expenses and a high-yield account growing in the background. When you know there is a floor, you can look at the situation clearly instead of reacting from terror. And that clarity changes every single financial decision you make under pressure because you are no longer solving for survival. You are solving for the actual best option. Sign 7. They stopped trying to look rich because they finally are. Here is the deepest sign, and the one that ties all 6 together. At some point, the genuinely wealthy stopped performing wealth, not because they became humble, because the performance was always a substitute for the real thing, and they no longer need a substitute. Here is what makes this the most important sign on the list. Every one of the 9 signs above is a behavior that the genuinely wealthy do not have to force. They do not consciously decide to drive the modest car or say no to the upgrade or stay silent when money comes up. Those behaviors became automatic the moment their relationship with money shifted from performance to structure, from trying to look like they had arrived to actually building the thing that arrives. That shift is the actual game, and the signs above are not a list of tactics to copy. They are the natural behavior of someone who already made the shift, someone who looked at the scoreboard they were handed and decided to stop keeping score on it. The people who feel financially stuck are not failing at making money. They are keeping score on the wrong board. And the most expensive thing about that board is not what it costs you to play on it, it is what it costs you to not play on the one that actually builds anything. Looking rich and being rich are 2 completely different skills, and the people who quietly master the second one almost never waste energy on the first. I make these videos because I find it genuinely irritating that the real mechanics of building wealth are hidden in plain sight, while the performance of it gets all the attention. Subscribe so I can keep being irritated about that on your behalf. The video on your screen right now might be more helpful for you, so click and watch.